All right, so maybe you guys saw it, maybe you didn't, but all of the information we've been waiting on for Radeon Big Navi is finally out. The keynote, live stream, video, recording, whatever, has just finished with AMD's Lisa Su, and we got all the information that you guys have been looking for. So you're probably gonna see a ton of videos on this. Make sure you guys check out everyone's coverage, especially once the reviews actually go live. But we got a lot to talk about today because it looks like AMD has finally brought the fight back to NVIDIA. And who's the winner in all of this? Well, you guys are. The new P360A joins the Phanteks family of ultra-fine performance mesh gaming PC chassis featuring optimal aesthetics and airflow at an affordable price. The P360A is the perfect size for both water cooling and air cooling, with support of up to EATX motherboards and multiple 240 or 280 radiators, while dedicated cable management compartment with Velcro straps take the guesswork out of cable routing. To see the complete list of specs and available colors of the all-new P360A from Phanteks, visit the link in the description below. So let's talk about the performance per watt first, because that's what both sides were really proud of, both NVIDIA during their launch and AMD during theirs, because performance per watt directly translates to a performance uplift. If you're able to get more performance for the same amount of power limitations, well, that's more performance. So let's go ahead and talk about performance per watt uplift versus GCN. GCN was their graphics core Next, which came out years ago. And that was kind of their baseline in terms of their previous generation platform. And then when they moved from GCN to RDNA 1, that was the 5000 series, we saw a 50% performance uplift over RDNA 1, and RDNA 1 was a 50% uplift over GCN. So we're seeing 100% performance per watt uplift versus anything prior to the 5700 series graphics cards. So that's already worth mentioning right there. They are just getting way more performance out of the same cost to bring that performance, if that makes sense. The 6800 XT was the first graphics card they showed. They showed 3 SKUs, 26.8 billion transistors on a 7 nanometer architecture. They are saying that they're able to get a lot of this efficiency because of a completely redesigned GPU pipeline. You know, these are some of the specs that I'm probably not gonna go into in terms of the way that the pipeline has been redesigned. That's the type of stuff that you really have got to go watch Steve for. He really likes to get nerdy and dive real deep into that type of architecture. Around here, we really care more or less about the surface specs and then what the performance at the end of the day is, because I believe that's what the general consumer is kind of looking at. We can talk about the infinity cache and all that sort of stuff, but I think at the end of the day, most people are just like, show me the money kind of a thing, right? 30% frequency increase at the same watt. And that's, again, because of the performancy. Yeah, that's what we should call it. The efficiency and performance should be called performancy. No, the efficiency increase directly related to a 30% clock increase at the same watt. So that's what that sort of translated to there. They are including ray tracing this time around. They're using DXR, which is a DirectX ray tracing. So it's done at an API level rather than really a hardware level. Which is what the RT cores on an NVIDIA graphics card are doing. This is the part that people need to realize. NVIDIA did not invent ray tracing. Ray tracing is just math, and NVIDIA created their way of doing it, both, I guess, implicitly and explicitly, depending on the title and the way that it's implemented, with NVIDIA's engineers being involved in the game title or using Microsoft's DirectX API to do it. AMD and Microsoft work very closely together to get it optimized on their architecture. NVIDIA did not invent ray tracing, and a lot of people seem to think that they did in some way. And I think that's just because of the renaming of RTX being a very good marketing thing, where a lot of people just think, hey, RT, ray tracing, RTX, that's a NVIDIA thing. But now that we're gonna see it on AMD graphics cards, I'm really curious if those arguments of ray tracing is just a fad, no one cares, argument's gonna suddenly change to, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, because now AMD is introducing their ability to do it at a gameable level, I guess is the best way to put it. Because being real time, if you understand the mathematics happening in any sort of real time ray tracing, is impressive no matter what. And the fact that both companies can now give you offerings that can do it and not give you a major hindrance to your gameplay, it's worth talking about. And remember, this is AMD's first kind of generation giving you real-time ray tracing, whereas NVIDIA is now basically on their second gen. So it's gonna be interesting to see how DXR on and off is gonna compare on both platforms. And that's stuff that we'll obviously have to test once we have all the cards in-house here. So there's something else here that we're seeing now with the collaboration between Microsoft's DirectX team and Radeon is the Direct Storage API. So once again, that's part of the DirectX suite, and it's allowing you to have a lot of the system resources and the game resources, game textures and stuff directly cached on the graphics card itself. So that gives you much faster loading times, much faster texture loading times, so you don't get weird like pop-ins and stutters and stuff like that. Because instead of trading off with system memory as well, it's all being loaded directly onto the graphics card. And one of the ways they're able to do that is because of what they're also calling now their infinity cache. So they kind of took a lot of the same things that they learned from the Zen architecture and have applied it to the graphics card. They're saying up to double the performance in 4K versus RDNA 1. That would have sounded impressive even if you had said versus GCN. But having double the performance at 4K versus RDNA 1, it's probably just simply because of the die size itself. The amount of transistors they're cramming into this particular architecture alone is what's giving you the uplift in 4K performance. It looks like they're delivering on their promise of Big Navi RDNA 2 aging like fine wine, just like Zen has, which is what they promised us sitting here more than a year ago in our studio here at our table where we had a discussion with them face to face. They said, expect great things to come out of RDNA over its life cycle, just like you saw with Zen. And the amount of uplift that we're seeing from the 5700 XT to the 6000 series alone, that one generational improvement is like greater than anything they ever did with Zen in terms of CPU. So this is really exciting to see because we're always looking to the future. We're always looking 2-3 years ahead because you can kind of look 2-3 years in the past to determine where you're gonna be. And this is a very exponential curve if you kind of trace that. 2.25 gigahertz boost clock. I'm interested to see how well it maintains that because although we were seeing up to 2100 megahertz boost clock on the 5700 XT, it very rarely actually stayed there or hit it. So I'm curious to see how long we get there, how fast we get there, how long it stays there. But up to 2.25 gigahertz boost is obviously showing that they have got this process dialed in. 128 megabytes of that infinity cache like we just talked about. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing such a performance uplift is because of the bandwidth, if you will, in terms of the cache that's accessible has directly related to or been contributed to bringing up that performance lift. Now they're doing all this at 300 watts. Don't forget, NVIDIA just launched a 320 and 350 watt variant of their high-end cards. So we're seeing this level of performance at 20 watts less TDP than the 3080. Now, if you look at the chart and you see the comparison of the 6800 XT versus the 3080, we're seeing it trade blows and beat it in pretty much every title. Certain titles it's beating it, certain titles it's not, but it's doing it at less watts, which is absolutely insane. There's one other thing to talk about though in terms of performance, and I was looking at the charts carefully to try and make sure there wasn't like stars and asterisks on this. There's a new mode called Rage Mode. Yep, AMD had us all along going, wow, they finally got rid of the stupid gimmicky, nope, there's the gimmicky name we were looking for, Rage Mode. Okay, who cares what it's called? Rage Mode is a one-button overclock where it basically will just squeeze out every bit of performance that it can through artificial, and I don't want to say artificial intelligence. It will automatically find its max boost clocks and max memory clocks and all of that. But it can also leverage 5000 series processors from Zen 3 to give it a performance boost as well, because it uses what's called its smart access memory, which is where it will directly use the system memory as well to give you more boost. So I'm not sure exactly how that works yet. I still have to go through a deep dive. Some people were privy to this information before others. Unfortunately, we didn't get any of that information yet. So I'm kind of curious how it's able to access system memory, which is notoriously slow versus any sort of VRAM, to give you a performance uplift. Now it looks like on the 6800T or XT benchmarks that it was not using Rage Mode, because I feel like that would have been worth mentioning. If it was trading blows and beating the 3080 with Rage Mode on, then that definitely deserves a big, fat, bold, italicized asterisk, because that's only going to be for those running Zen 3 architecture CPUs to get that sort of performance uplift. But then they showed a chart with Rage Mode on where we saw up to double-digit percentage improvements over the chart they initially showed. So that means what we were seeing with 6800 XT versus 3080 was just the raw horsepower out of the box, like trading blows, Ali versus Frazier type of fight, which is really cool. So those of you that have always asked in the past, Do I need to use an NVIDIA graphics card with Intel, and should I use an AMD graphics card with an AMD CPU? The answer was always no. That didn't really hold true unless you were looking for max FPS because of the clock speed being the thing that holds you back. Is not really the case anymore because now you can get a direct, tangible improvement to your AMD graphics card when paired with an AMD CPU. Which makes sense though. If you're the designer of the architecture of both and you find a way to leverage those two, why not? And then it becomes actually beneficial to pair your system with certain stuff. Oh, and the price of that card actually, $649, $50 cheaper than the 3080. Trading blows and beating the 3080 in several titles. That's already a win right there, right? NVIDIA's either got to lower its price by 50 bucks or just bank on the fact that, you know, fanboys are gonna be fanboys and they're gonna buy NVIDIA no matter what, and AMD fanboys are gonna buy AMD no matter what. Unless you're progressive and in the middle, like most of us, I think, if you're shopping right now, you've got to consider this card. And that's not even talking about the AIB models yet, which are going to probably have higher boost clocks, better cooling solutions, and probably give you even more for your money. But they're probably gonna cost more as well. But let's say they cost $50 more and they're the exact price of a Founders Edition 3080, then you might be getting more for your money at that point. They also introduced a 6800 non-XT model, which they kind of just sort of blew through. They both have 16 gigabytes of memory, which is nice to see because the 3070, as you know, only has 8 gigabytes, the 3080 only has 10 gigabytes, and the 3090 has 24. So NVIDIA has clearly left a lot of room in there to come out with varying models, whether they be supermodels. I mean, the cards are kind of hot. Anyway, the hot as in like they're cool, not hot as in, but it leaves a lot of room in there for NVIDIA to come out with various models of maybe like the super variant or higher VRAM variants. I don't know, it's interesting to see what's gonna happen here in the future. But it's got 250 watt TDP versus the 300 watt TDP of the XT model. And it's gonna cost $579, which is interesting because the couple of benchmarks that they did shows it being compared to the 2080 Ti. And I think the reason why they did that is they know that that particular competition right there is gonna be versus the 3070. 3070 isn't out yet, so they can't compare directly to a 3070. At least at the time I'm watching this video, 3070 is in no one's hands yet other than reviewers. AMD certainly is not gonna have one. So they know by comparing it to the 2080 Ti is comparing it to the 3070. But the 3070 costs $499. This card costs $80 more than that at $579. However, if you look at the performance uplift versus the 2080, it's not like the 3070 versus 2080 where it kind of trails it, kind of beats it, some titles it is significant at how much faster it is. And then other titles it's just a little bit faster. So I think they're banking on the percentage difference there being the average percentage improvement you're gonna see over a 2080 Ti. But not to be one up by the 3090, there's one more thing, 6900 XT at 2.25 gigahertz, 16 gigabytes, 300 watt card, still a faster card at the same TDP. Remember, Phil just raised his hands going, it's like voodoo magic, I tell you. They put a hex on that card in some way. Someone sold to the devil to make this one work. But it's $999. $500 less than the RTX 3090. However, this one does deserve the big asterisk because Phil did spot on the benchmark that this one does say it's with rage mode on. You can bet we're gonna test this obviously with a 5000 series CPU with these smart access memory turned on and rage mode on and off and all that. But this one, it looks like they had all the toggle switches turned on compared to the 3090, which is fine in my opinion. Because again, if you are running an AMD system and that's free performance, do it, turn it on. But we have to see how it compares to the 3090 on a non-smart access memory system, like on Intel or something, and then see how the performance is. But considering the fact that it only costs 66% of a 3090, I'm fairly certain it's gonna be more than 66% of the performance, which is just great all around. That card doesn't come out till December 8th though. The 6800 non-XT comes out in the middle of November. Now, if you think this card is not going to sell out instantly, just like NVIDIA's cards, then you are bona fide bat crazy. Because I've seen a lot of people saying, well, just wait for AMD, they're gonna have plenty of stock. This is going to sell out, period. The question is, how has TSMC been able to ramp up? Because remember, NVIDIA moved to a new manufacturer. They moved to Samsung for their cores. TSMC is who's been manufacturing the cores for NVIDIA, for NVIDIA up until now, as well as AMD, but as well as almost every other semiconductor out there is being manufactured for TSMC. So my question is TSMC gonna be able to keep the manufacturing going at a rate that can meet demand? I think no. I think there might be more cards at initial availability, but I think they're gonna sell out instantly as well. And I think if you're not sitting there mashing refresh on the websites trying to buy one, the same bot problems you saw happen with NVIDIA and the same massive demand not being met is going to happen on this card. And if you think it's not, like I said, just wear a bandana that says, I'm crazy, because you are, if you think they're not gonna sell out. Anyway, that's what we know so far. We'll be getting our cards. In fact, we've already got some notifications that the cards are gonna be arriving very soon. Testing's gonna be happening very soon. And we don't have a lot of time to test all the CPU stuff and all the AMD GPU stuff before these launches. So we gotta get going, which means we gotta end this video and get it online so you guys can be educated. Remember, go and watch all the other coverages, please, not just ours. Tech is very scientific based, but also very opinion based on what has value and is worth it. So go and check out everyone else's videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.